Hello everybody, my name is James Saunders. I'm the Inclusion Strategy and Relationship Manager for Gloucestershire County Council. I'm here today to talk to you about the team around the locality cluster. I'm going to make the assumption that everybody here is aware of the team around the locality cluster, and if you're not, I'd encourage you to go and have a look at the TALC website to understand where TALC is rooted. What I'm here to do today is to provide you with a bit of an update as we move out of the pilot phase of TALC and into the business as usual phase. Before I make start, I will just give a shameless plug for the Ready Reckoner, just to remind everybody that this document was produced as part of the TALC development, but sits as a standalone early intervention and early help tool that you can make use of. You see on the left-hand side a set of scenarios that schools will find themselves in, and on the right-hand side, some details with hyperlinks of agencies that may be able to support against those scenarios. Okay, I'm going to just refresh with the TALC target audience. Young people whose unmet needs act as a barrier to them accessing a full and appropriate education, and those young people whose unmet needs can be supported in the early intervention arena, so via a non-statutory response. And if we think about the Gloucestershire levels of intervention, we are largely thinking about those young people's needs sitting at level 3. And those young people who have accessed single or multi-agency support interventions, but whose needs remain wholly or partially unmet. So what we're saying is that TALC isn't your first port of call for an early intervention response. There are single agency responses out there, and your early help coordinators, your outcome coordinators, your inclusion officers, amongst other key staff, can support you to identify those single agency responses where you have accessed a single agency response and those needs for the young person remain wholly or partially unmet. They're the young people that we should be discussing at TALC. There is a fourth criteria for a young person who suddenly finds themselves at risk of exclusion due to their unmet needs. So we're not talking about those young people whose needs have been escalating gradually over time. We're talking about those rare circumstances where young people suddenly find themselves at risk of exclusion, and a school can come forward to the multi-agency operational group at TALC and ask for some support to identify alternative solutions rather than excluding a young person. Just flagging to you the flowchart, which you will probably have seen before. In essence, you place the young person in the top left-hand corner of this flowchart and work through that flowchart to understand whether or not a referral to the TALC is appropriate for that young person. What I will just do is flag to you that there is a new process for those young people where there is an EHCP assessment in progress. Those young people where a decision has been made that an assessment will take place, but you're waiting for a decision about the outcome of an EHCP being allocated for that young person. There is now a new process. Further detail will be shared in a joint additional and high needs transformation programme newsletter coming out in the next couple of weeks. But those young people can access support directly from the EHCP team. I want to talk to you about the original pilot model, which, as you're probably aware, was focused on Cheltenham and Gloucester. We had 2 pilots, one in Cheltenham and one in Gloucester, as well as a universal offer for all other schools across the county. What we are going to be doing, and we've started doing for the last 2 weeks, is moving to a dual locality model. So we are moving our resource from those pilot phases into our business as usual dual locality model. As you can see on the map, that will be a Cheltenham Tewkesbury, a Gloucester Forest of Dean, and a Stroud Cotswolds dual locality. The learning from the pilot identified that a local response to local needs was much more beneficial. We also find that the vast majority of our partner agencies involved in the team around the locality cluster operate in these dual locality models. So this model made sense for us moving forward. The model is also supportive of local agencies being able to build local relationships, another of the benefits of the team around the locality cluster. The second change as we move into this new phase of team around the locality cluster is that all referrals that we receive will be triaged. Previously, the Cheltenham pilot allowed for a triage to take place, whereas Gloucester and Universal referrals were passed straight through to the operational group meeting. The learning that we took from those pilots were that the triage was hugely beneficial in helping us identify early needs for young people, helping us identify where an alternative response would be more appropriate for that young person, but also helping us to identify which key agencies are already involved with a young person or perhaps need to be involved with a young person so that we can encourage attendance at the operational groups of those agencies. What we're already starting to see is a more robust, holistic conversation within those operational group meetings with the correct agency sitting around the table to be part of those conversations. Just a few key takeaway messages. Some of you will have seen these messages before, but I want to reinforce them. That TALC is an early help intervention. It absolutely should be utilised when previous early help hasn't improved outcomes for a young person. And to prevent escalation to statutory services, TALC is an early intervention, and we want to land the intervention in that arena. There's a focus on multi-agency information sharing and collaboration. It's about removing barriers that prevent young people from accessing their full and appropriate education. TALC is not focused on funding. TALC is absolutely focused on that multi-agency approach. What I'd also encourage you to do, if you haven't already done so, is go and have a look at the TALC landing page. On that landing page, you'll find a wealth of information. You'll also find some short videos which include an appropriate referral case study to give you an idea of the kinds of outcomes that a young person might expect once they've been referred into the TALC. It will also give you an overview from one of our schools who have engaged with the TALC process to date. So from their perspective, you'll be able to understand what the benefit of engaging with TALC is. Thanks for your time. If you have any questions or any comments that you would like to have fed back, please pass them on to the Early Help Coordinator that is facilitating the forum, and they will happily share with me. Goodbye.